Shalom, I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you regarding the current situation with the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, as well as the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and the threat that this poses to the nation of Israel from the south. Furthermore, we're going to share with you the current situation with Syria and Iran and the prospects for war in the Middle East breaking out in the near future as a result of the current situation in Egypt, Syria, and Iran. First, I'd like to share with you an overview of the situation regarding the peace process, and it is as follows. The Palestinians have asked foreign diplomats to support a bid for a non-member observer status at the United Nations. The request would be put to the UN General Assembly, where approval would require a simple majority of those present. No individual country has veto rights at the UN General Assembly. Being a non-member observer state, which is the same status that is held by the Roman Catholic Church, would improve the Palestinians' chances of joining UN agencies in the International Criminal Court. Hanan Ashrari, a Palestinian Liberation Organization Executive Committee member, said, "Even though the timing has yet to be determined, we are coordinating our efforts with Arab and Muslim countries as well as with the international community." The European Union is refusing to recognize the city of Moadin as being a part of Israel. As a result, products exported from there fall outside the parameters of the free trade agreement known as the European Union-Israel Association Agreement. The Israeli Foreign Ministry objected to the European decision. Meanwhile, the Muslim Brotherhood has completely taken over power in Egypt. Egypt's President Mohamed Morsi fired leaders of the pro-American Supreme Military Council, who has been ruling Egypt since Hosni Mubarak was overthrown. Furthermore, Morsi has gained control of the media in Egypt. Finally, he called for regime change in Syria. Morsi would like to see the Muslim Brotherhood come to power in Syria in an effort to establish a Sunni Islam caliphate run by Sharia law, which he said was the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood movement prior to him being elected as leader in Egypt. So next, we're going to share with you the current situation with Syria, and an overview is as follows. Russian warships are headed to the Mediterranean Sea. Chinese warships are docked in Israel. As odds increase for foreign military intervention in Syria, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar told their citizens to leave Lebanon. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton mentioned the possibility of establishing a no-fly zone over some parts of Syria to help the rebels defeat the Assad government. A no-fly zone is one in which outside nations prohibit flights over parts of another country and enforce it militarily. The creation of such a zone over Libya last year seriously constrained the use of pro-Gaddafi aviation and artillery. France, Britain, and then NATO made ample use of it to eventually bring about a regime change in Libya. However, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says plans to set up a no-fly zone over parts of Syria are not on the front burner. Turkey has sent the Syrian rebels fighting in the northern Syrian city of Aleppo their first shipment of shoulder-carried anti-air 92 Stingers. The Stinger is a heat-seeking missile. Turkey manufactures the Stingers under American license and is obliged by contract to obtain U.S. permission for their transfer to a third party. It was granted by Washington in a secret way. British Foreign Secretary William Hague said that his government has granted Syrian rebels $8 million of non-military support. The Syrian rebels, Western and Arab sponsors, have given them 20 Russian-made T-62 tanks from Libya. As the rebels are increasingly being armed with greater weaponry, the danger continues to increase that Assad may decide to use unconventional weapons to try to remain in power. On the other hand, Iran is playing a growing role supporting the Syrian regime and is helping to build and train a militia to fight against opposition forces. While the U.S. provides vital help to the Syrian rebels, they condemn those who are helping Assad to remain in power. Clearly, Syria is deeply entrenched in a proxy war being waged between the West and Arab countries against Russia, China, and Iran. Now, given that Iran is so strongly helping Syria, the probability is slim that Iran will willingly give up its nuclear weapons program. Next, we're going to share with you the current situation with Iran. And an overview is as follows. The United States has imposed new sanctions on Iran in an effort to punish banks, insurance companies, and shippers that help Iran sell its oil. Russia called the measures overt blackmail and a crude contradiction of international law. Russia flexed its military power to the United States by positioning a nuclear-powered attack submarine armed with long-range cruise missiles in the Gulf of Mexico for several weeks, which went undetected by the U.S. Navy. Israel continues to warn that time is short for diplomacy to work to convince Iran to give up its nuclear program. Michael Oren, Israel's ambassador to the United States, said, "Because the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, along with Germany, have so far failed to negotiate a compromise with Iran over its nuclear program, that Iran is expected to buy more time to install additional centrifuges to produce more uranium that would be hidden inside fortified bunkers that would be beyond Israel's ability to harm it should Israel decide to launch a military attack against Iran." Israel Defense Minister Ehud Barak said that the new U.S. National Intelligence estimate on Iran, as confirming that both Israel and the United States understand that not much time is left for making a decision on whether or not to go on the offensive against Iran's nuclear facilities, and when, because he said, a nuclear Iran is taking shape right before our eyes. Regarding the possibility of an Israeli military strike against Iran, Barak said it would be much more complicated, much more dangerous, and much more expensive to deal with a nuclear Iran in the future. Concerned that Israel might decide to attack Iran in the next several months, U.S. President Barack Obama has requested a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the next UN General Assembly session to be held at the end of September. Sources close to Obama admit that the dialogue on Iran with Israel leaders has run its course, since neither side believes it can change its opposite number's mind. Nevertheless, Israel media reports that Obama will seek to assure Israel that the U.S. will use force to stop Iran's nuclear weapons drive by next June at the latest, if Iran has not halted its program by then. In preparing for a war with Iran, Israel has designated 60 privately owned garages and underground lots as bomb shelters that can be used by 800,000 people. These garages and underground lots are located in Tel Aviv. They have also successfully tested a mobile text messaging warning system to alert the people of Israel of a possible military attack against it. Debka reports that Iran will have the capability to make 1 nuclear bomb by October the 1st. Reports from Israel media outlets indicate that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is close to ordering a strike against Iran. However, Israel is willing to delay this action if Obama would do several things. First, Obama must repeat publicly at the UN General Assembly, for instance, that the U.S. will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons and that Israel has a right to defend itself independently. Second, Israel is also demanding that the United States inform Iran that if significant progress in the negotiations with the P5+1 powers, which consist of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, along with Germany, is not made within the next 2 weeks, that the talks should be suspended. Third, Israel is also urging the United States and the European Union to increase the direct economic pressure on Iran. Government officials in Israel have admitted that the sanctions are very effective, but they claim that the Iranian military nuclear program is advancing faster than the sanctions are. Another Israel demand refers to the so-called red line of Iran's nuclear program. The Obama administration claims that it will strike once intelligence agencies identify a breakthrough in the development of nuclear weapons, as defined by Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Israel argues that Iran must not be allowed to even come close to achieving nuclear breakout capability. In order to discourage Israel from unilaterally attacking Iran, the U.S. has told Israel that they would not necessarily join in were Israel to launch a military strike against Iran's nuclear program. White House spokesman Jay Carney said the U.S. was committed to giving talks with Iran a chance to bear fruit. He said, "We continue to believe there is time and space for diplomacy. The opportunity remains for Iran to take advantage of this process." Meanwhile, the United States is concerned that Israel may be willing to launch a strike on its own against Iran's nuclear facilities. The Israeli media is reporting that Israel is willing to go to war against Iran before the November 6th elections in the United States. The United States is trying to make a deal with Israel to prevent them from attacking Iran before the November elections in the United States for president, as Obama believes that going to war before the November 6th elections will weaken his chance to become reelected. The United States is reaching out to Israeli officials to find out exactly what it would take for Israel to delay its decision to attack Iran. The Jerusalem Post reports that former military intelligence head Amos Yadlin urged President Barack Obama to visit Israel to remove fears that the United States is not fully committed to stopping the Iranian nuclear program. The U.S. president should visit Israel and tell its leadership, and more importantly its people, that preventing a nuclear Iran is a U.S. interest, and if we have to resort to military action, we will. Yadlin also asked the United States to provide Israel with advanced military technology and intelligence contingent on Israeli pledges to delay a strike on Iran until after the November elections. Yadlin presented a 5-point plan to the Obama administration designed to convince allies and adversaries alike that military action is real, imminent, and doable. He called on Obama to notify Congress in writing that he reserves the right to use military force on Iran. He added that the United States should increase its military presence in the Persian Gulf and should also publicly commit to the security of its allies in the region. Israel cannot afford to outsource its security to another country, but if the United States wants Israel to give sanctions and diplomacy more time, Israelis must know that they will not be left high and dry if these options fail. Well, that's going to conclude this week's Focus Israel Report, where we shared with you the current situation with the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood to power in Egypt, as well as the prospects for war in the Middle East involving Syria and Iran. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.